A Mortal's Journey to Immortality Episode 169. The Valley of Fallen Demons is the foremost forbidden land in Tianan. It is known to contain countless treasures, but also countless dangers, and many cultivators have perished within its depths. In the last episode, Venerable Tianjin appeared, marking the official start of the exchange meeting. Nascent soul cultivators took turns presenting their treasures and stating what they wished to exchange for. Han Li was the first to make an exchange, using a 7th-grade demon core for a 3,000-year-old gold-eating branch. His apparent wealth earned him new respect from Lu Luo and others. Lu Luo and his companion, rather than pressing for details, merely offered congratulations. Other nascent soul cultivators also began to take notice of Han Li. However, Han Li remained unfazed, confident that with his current divine abilities as a nascent soul cultivator, those below the late stage would not be able to catch up to him. Fire Dragon Child attempted to exchange a 3-colored wondrous flower for poisonous floating wood, but no one present had it, so he sat down in disappointment. Lu Luo then exchanged a bottle of rare spirit grass essence for an unmastered fiery red small sword. Given his age, it was unclear who he intended the sword for, as it was unlikely he would spend more time cultivating such an item himself. Han Li then presented 1 level 6 water attribute demon core, 1 fire attribute demon core, and 2 spirit grasses of 1,000 years, seeking to exchange them for a piece of Gongjin. He also offered to exchange an item for any news regarding Gongjin. Upon hearing this, the cultivators all displayed strange expressions. While the demon cores and 1,000-year spirit grasses were precious, they were significantly inferior to Gongjin. An exchange for these items would likely only yield a tiny, bean-sized piece of Gongjin, which would be of little use. However, offering such valuable items merely for news of Gongjin seemed overly generous, as news was just information, and actually obtaining the treasure was a separate challenge. This was because many heavenly treasures and ancient cultivator ruins, though widely known, were situated in deadly forbidden lands or extremely perilous locations where survival was a slim chance. Even cultivators with the greatest divine abilities often found them impossible to retrieve. The most famous example was the Valley of Fallen Demons in the Great Tianan continent. This place was rumored to be an ancient battlefield where, during the primordial era, many mighty ancient cultivators and demon cultivators established their formations and restrictions. For unknown reasons, they fought and battled each other within, their astonishing divine abilities eventually tearing open countless small spatial rifts, rendering the entire valley's space unstable. The ancient cultivators fought to the death and perished together. Consequently, with its chaotic space and the presence of ancient formations and restrictions, this ancient battlefield became a place of deadly peril at every step, transforming the Valley of Fallen Demons into an area of extreme danger. For many years, countless high-level cultivators, confident in their divine abilities and greedy for lost ancient treasures and cultivation techniques, entered the valley to search for riches. However, none ever emerged alive. The number of high-level cultivators who perished there is estimated to be no less than 800, if not 1,000, and their wondrous treasures were also left behind. In the past 10,000 years, almost no one has dared to try their luck with a hopeful heart. Thus, all cultivators in Tianan knew that the Valley of Fallen Demons contained numerous treasures, but they could only stare with wide eyes and swallow their saliva, as no one dared to seek their own death within its confines. News of Gongjin was not something ordinary people would know. The cultivators in the venue merely looked at Han Li, but no one sent a voice transmission to offer any information. Han Li felt a little disappointed by the lack of response. He hadn't brought out his best treasures, knowing it was unlikely he would get what he needed from a single exchange meeting. To avoid revealing his true wealth, he had deliberately presented less valuable items. However, the fact that so many nascent soul cultivators were present, yet none had any relevant news, truly dejected him. He sighed secretly and looked around, noticing a hint of hesitation in true monarch Tianjin's eyes. It seemed that even if Tianjin didn't possess Gongjin himself, he likely had information about it. Han Li decided not to send a voice transmission immediately, choosing instead to wait and observe how the exchange meeting unfolded. Other cultivators successively presented treasures for exchange. Finally, it was true monarch Tianjin's turn. He produced 7 or 8 puppet beasts, including white wolves, green pythons, and red ox-like beings, whose strength appeared to be at the early core formation stage. He explained that he and a few fellow Taoists had recently discovered these in an ancient ruin. Although these items were not particularly powerful for nascent soul cultivators, it could still be quite effective on certain special occasions. He wanted to exchange for items called soul stones, which were known from ancient times. The exchange rate was 1 soul stone for 1 puppet beast. To demonstrate what a soul stone looked like, true immortal Tianjing directly produced a thumb-sized, emerald green crystal. Han Li noticed that this crystal was identical to the spiritual essence he had collected in the Land of Brilliance. This person not only presented many puppets, but also sought to collect soul stones. Han Li recalled the numerous puppets he had seen in the Sutian Hall, all of which contained soul stones. It seemed this individual intended to gather soul stones to control even stronger puppets. However, soul stones were clearly rare. After a considerable wait, only 1 cultivator produced a soul stone and exchanged it for a beast puppet. After true immortal Tianjing inquired several times and saw no one else come forward, he felt a pang of disappointment, even though he had anticipated this outcome. Just as he was about to put away the remaining puppet beasts, Han Li approached him. True immortal Tianjing's expression brightened, and he asked with surprise, "Fellow Taoist, do you also possess soul stones?" Han Li then produced a soul stone the size of an egg. True immortal Tianjing was initially startled, then became overjoyed, an involuntary smile spreading across his face. He calmly stated, "Fellow Taoist, this soul stone is remarkably large and truly rare. How about this? You may choose 2 of these puppets. This humble Taoist will ensure you do not suffer a loss." Upon hearing this, Han Li chuckled and shook his head. True immortal Tianjing, not angered, amiably inquired, "What's wrong? Does fellow Taoist believe that's too few? How many do you intend to exchange for?" Han Li calmly replied, "This soul stone will exchange for all the remaining puppets you possess." The old Taoist frowned upon hearing this and said with some displeasure, "Exchanging for 6? Don't you think that's rather greedy, fellow Taoist?" Han Li stared at true immortal Tianjing and chuckled, "Hee, whether it's greedy or not, true immortal should be very clear. A soul stone's value isn't solely determined by its size. Furthermore, a soul stone of this magnitude for a true immortal like yourself is." At this point, Han Li abruptly ceased speaking. Hearing this, true immortal Tianjing realized Han Li possessed some understanding of puppets. His expression shifted slightly. He scrutinized Han Li intently for a few moments, then remained silent for a while before finally agreeing, "All right. A soul stone of this size is indeed rare, and I urgently need this item. We will proceed with the exchange as fellow Taoists suggested." As Han Li collected the 6 puppet beasts, he secretly sent a voice transmission to true immortal Tianjing, informing him that he still possessed more soul stones and arranging for a subsequent transaction. True immortal Tianjing then announced the conclusion of the exchange meeting, and the cultivators began to disperse. Fire Dragon Child, having another appointment, bid farewell and departed. Lu Luo then explained to Han Li, fellow Taoist Lan's appearance and physique have remained childlike because he accidentally consumed a certain herb in his youth. However, he is forthright and straightforward, making him one of the few trustworthy fellow Taoists from other sections. He is also the only elder in the ancient construction sect who is friendly towards our Luoyan sect. Only then did Han Li realize that the other elders of the ancient construction sect were not particularly friendly towards the Luoyan sect. Han Li planned to visit the market alone to purchase some special materials. Seeing that Han Li intended to act independently, Lu Luo did not object, agreeing, coincidentally, "I also plan to go to the auction house to consign an item for auction. So, let's part ways here for now." Han Li intended to purchase some relatively rare talisman-making materials in preparation for refining high-grade talismans. Although he possessed many spiritual beast hides and bones, he still needed to acquire additional raw materials to assist him. This was also part of his preparation for refining the descent talisman in the future. He aimed to elevate his talisman-making technique to another level. Furthermore, the descent talisman possessed extraordinary power, capable of saving his life at a critical moment, which naturally made Hanli eager to refine it. However, the difficulty of refining this talisman was not merely complex, it was extraordinarily challenging, far surpassing that of ordinary five-element talismans. To increase the success rate, he needed not only to improve his talisman-making technique, but also to replace his talisman brush. His original talisman brush should have been replaced long ago. Unfortunately, while talisman-making materials were readily available, a truly satisfactory talisman brush was difficult to acquire. After more than 100 years, Hanli and Wang Chan met again. What would their reactions be? And what was Wang Chan's cultivation level? After more than 100 years, Hanli and Wang Chan meet again. What will their reactions be, and what is Wang Chan's cultivation level now? In the last episode, Hanli couldn't find a suitable spirit brush, so he returned to his residence. Mu Peeling quickly stood up to greet him. Hanli told her not to wait for him and to cultivate on her own. He also gave her a Lingxin pendant, explaining that if she encountered an emergency, she just needed to inject spiritual power, and the other pendant on him would sense it, prompting him to come to her aid. A blush flashed across Mu Peeling's face as she softly replied, "Thank you for the young master's gift." She took the jade pendant and hung it on her waist. Hanli told her to go back to her room and rest, while he went up to the second floor of the attic. After resting for over an hour, he went to find true immortal Tianjin. After some bargaining, Hanli used 20 to 30 soul stones to exchange for the crafting methods of several types of puppets, as well as information about Gengjin. The highest grade puppets could even rival the attacks of nascent soul mid-stage cultivators. However, although Hanli found someone who wanted to sell Gengjin, that person demanded a 7-extremity beast egg or the legendary divine mud of Hua-E. Since Hanli didn't possess these items, he couldn't acquire the Gengjin. Ultimately, the seller put the Gengjin up for auction at the auction house, where it was bought for a high price of 760,000 spirit stones by a cultivator who concealed their appearance. Hanli was present but gave up on the item after seeing the exorbitant price. After leaving the auction house, he went to the market to buy materials for crafting ancient puppets. He still hadn't bought all the necessary materials, and the main material, 10,000-year ironwood, required a lot of time and spiritual energy to cultivate. Therefore, it was impossible to immediately craft nascent soul stage ancient puppets. However, once he had enough time to craft them, his strength would increase greatly. It was already the 4th day of the trade fair, and Hanli wanted to see what great opportunity Marquis Nanlong had found. Following the location marked in the jade slip, he found a stone house. Before he could knock, Marquis Nanlong opened the door and welcomed him in. The room appeared empty, but fluctuations from a restriction were present. Marquis Nanlong cast out a golden glow, and an inconspicuous spot on the floor immediately flashed with white light. The illusion disappeared, revealing a dark stone staircase. Marquis Nanlong went down first, with Hanli following closely behind. Below was a small underground hall. The soft white light from a few moonlight stones made the area flicker between light and dark. Inside, there were 7 or 8 cultivators, 6 were seated, and 1 man and 1 woman stood side by side, seemingly together. When they saw Marquis Nanlong and Hanli enter, they all cast their gazes over. The standing man, upon seeing Hanli, had his face change drastically and exclaimed, "It's you." Hanli was startled by the words. He looked at the man, who was in the late core formation stage and wore an impressive silver mask. A hint of sarcasm appeared at the corner of Hanli's mouth. This person was none other than the young master of Ghost Spirit Sect, who had chased him down and driven him to a dead end back then. The youthful arrogance of yesteryear was gone from his eyes, replaced by a touch of vicissitude and a hint of shock and anger. Hanli said indifferently, "I didn't expect to meet an old acquaintance here. It's quite a surprise for me." Wang Chan, with some shock, said, "How is this possible?" You formed a nascent soul. A black-robed figure sitting in front of Wang Chan suddenly asked coldly, "What's going on? You know this fellow Taoist?" Wang Chan explained, "Second uncle, this is the person I told you about, that ancient cultivator surnamed Han from Huangfeng Valley. Back then, it was him." A hint of displeasure flashed across the man's face, but after frowning, he interrupted without hesitation. No need to say more. Fellow Taoist Han is already a nascent soul cultivator. How could he bother with a junior like you? Then, this person, Wang Tiangu of the Ghost Spirit Sect, smiled gently at Han Li and said amiably, "Regarding what happened back then, my nephew is ignorant and reckless. He offended you greatly. But for my sake, I hope fellow Taoist will no longer dwell on this matter." Han Li glanced at Wang Tiangu and said with a light laugh, "What happened between fellow Taoist Wang and I back then was just a small matter. Many years have passed since then. How could I, Han, still hold a grudge against your esteemed self?" But he secretly sneered in his heart. Back then, Wang Chan had almost taken his life several times, even forcing him to risk teleporting away from Tianan. How could such a grudge be settled so easily? If it weren't for the many nascent soul cultivators present, and Wang Tiangu also being a nascent soul cultivator, he would definitely send that person to their death immediately. For now, he could only observe who the other people were and if there were any demonic cultivators among them. Otherwise, if he didn't get his revenge, he might be jointly eliminated by them instead. Marquis Nanlong interjected matter-of-factly, "Haha, fellow Taoist Han, you're originally from Hornet Valley. I thought you were originally from Luoyan sect. However, it's for the best that fellow Taoist can give up on superficiality. After all, I invited all of you here, and I don't wish to see any unpleasantness occur." Wang Tiangu smiled faintly upon hearing this. Being deeply cunning, he naturally wouldn't easily believe what Han Li said. He nodded seemingly casually and remarked, "Fellow Taoist has such a broad mind. I, Wang, admire that. However, fellow Taoist Han, rest assured. After returning, I will strictly deal with these minor matters. Fellow Taoist, it's truly astonishing that in merely less than 200 years, you've cultivated from the foundation establishment stage to the nascent soul stage. It's truly hard to believe. I presume that in a few hundred more years, it wouldn't be impossible for fellow Taoist to cultivate to the late nascent soul stage. Indeed, it wouldn't be impossible. We, with our dull aptitudes, are far inferior." The other cultivators' expressions all changed upon hearing this. Han Li secretly felt something was amiss. This person seemed to be praising him, but was actually pushing him into a dangerous position. The burly man beside him asked with a strange expression, "Is fellow Taoist really not yet 300 years old?" Han Li replied nonchalantly, "Alliance leader Wang, you jest. I only recently formed my nascent soul. How dare I aspire to the late nascent soul stage, such an unknown matter of 100 years from now?" He then looked at the people in the room. Only then did he notice that the beautiful young woman next to Wang Chan was also a late core formation cultivator. This woman stood side by side with Wang Chan behind Wang Tiangu. It seemed that this woman was Yen Rian, the heavenly spirit root daughter of the Yen family. The other 6 were all nascent soul cultivators. Among them, a white-haired, beardless old man was actually at the mid-nascent soul stage. Han Li took another look at this person. As their gazes met, he immediately shivered. That single glance from the other party was chilling to the bone, as if it could freeze his heart and lungs. This greatly alarmed Han Li, but on the surface, he calmly tilted his head slightly, seemingly casually avoiding the old man's gaze. Seeing this, the old man's lips curved into a faint smile. Marquis Nanlong motioned for Han Li to sit. Han Li found an empty chair and sat down. Then, with a faint, fleeting smile, he looked at Wang Chan, whose gaze was flickering. Wang Chan, because Wang Tiangu was present, although inwardly greatly shocked, had now regained his composure. However, the look he cast at Han Li was naturally cold, filled with an indescribable jealousy. His rival, who had the same cultivation as him back then, had unexpectedly soared to the heavens and formed a nascent soul. This truly filled him with shock and anger, and naturally, intense hatred. As for Yan Ruyan, she took a couple more glances at Han Li, her eyes clear and bright, her thoughts unknown. Han Li scoffed at this and no longer paid attention to the two of them. Marquis Nanlong stood in the center and said in a deep voice, "Fellow Taoists, some of you belong to the righteous path, some come from demonic sects, and others are lone rogue cultivators. But there is one thing that all of you have in common. Your divine senses are all exceptionally powerful. This is also why I invited all of you to gather here. Some of you already know the general outline of the matter, but most of you have not yet been informed. Therefore, I will explain the matter in detail again, and then everyone can decide whether or not to participate. If you are unwilling, I will absolutely not force you." Upon hearing this, Han Li's spirits lifted, knowing that the main topic was coming. A cold-faced cultivator sitting opposite Wang Tiangu suddenly spoke. "Heh, everyone else is fine, but why are those two youngsters from Ghost Spirit sect here? What does this mean? Don't tell me that their divine senses can compare to ours." As this person spoke, he stared at Wang Tiangu with an unfriendly gaze, seemingly having some past conflict with him. Marquis Nanlong seemed to have anticipated this, and said confidently, "Fellow Taoist, you've misjudged this time. Although their cultivation isn't high, they are proficient in a secret art. When they join forces, they can merge their divine senses, and for a short period, their divine sense is not weaker than ours. You must know that cultivators with powerful divine senses like us are truly hard to find. Fellow Taoists either cultivate certain techniques, or have naturally superior divine senses, or possess treasures that can enhance divine senses. Otherwise, would I, this Marquis, do something useless?" Marquis Nanlong gathered so many cultivators with powerful divine senses. What exactly did he want to do? Could Han Li find an opportunity to make Wang Chan die? Okay, that's all the content for this video. If you enjoyed it, please don't hesitate to like, share, and subscribe. After all, your support is my motivation to keep creating content. I'm Han Li. See you in the next video.